Thank you for that very enlightening weather report, Brian. Now we're going to go over to Mason Henderson, our sports reporter, as he tells us what's been going on at Goodison Park between Everton and Chelsea. What have you got for us, Mason? What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and that's why we're not in the title race. I mean, we can still drop points like this. And it's a draw that I don't think anybody's going to be really pissed about. I think there's probably going to be a little bit of disappointment, though, because for me, the disappointment comes from I do feel like this game was there to be won, and also this is clearly what Everton were playing for. They are ecstatic with a point at the end of the day. And there is something about that to me screams we should be putting them to bed then. If they're not even here to win it, obviously they have their counterattacks, they have chances to win, and I'm sure they would have liked to take one of those. But at the end of the day, you could see how happy they were with a point. I feel like anytime you come up against a team like that feels like their goal is to not play, their goal is to wait for you to come to them, and then whenever you give the ball away, that's when they'll finally play. It feels like it just has this feeling of you guys aren't even really trying to play the game. You're not trying to entertain. You're just here to get a point. You're just here to sit back. They defend well. I mean, I'm not criticizing their defending. Obviously, they are very well set up. It's that feeling, though, of it is an entertainment business, and that's not entertaining to watch. To watch 10 men basically sit in their own half for a majority of the match, only occasionally breaking out. It's just not fun. And I feel like we should be wanting to destroy those teams. But unfortunately today, I don't think we were really fully up for it. I think the focus was lacking in some moments. I also feel like this is a team that we've struggled against in the past. This type of team that does sit in deep and we have to try to break them down. We've struggled against it in the past, but I feel like we've been better against those teams this year because we've had a little bit more quality in the attack, a little bit more movement. However, Everton are not just a team that sits back and packs it in. They know how to defend. They know how to set themselves up defensively, and they don't lose focus. Sean Dyche is a manager that will not let his teams lose focus. So they're going to essentially wait you out. Again, it's boring, and I feel like from a neutral standpoint, nobody's going to enjoy watching that game, which is why a lot of people don't like Sean Dyche as a manager, myself included. That's what he's there to do. He's there to grind out points against the top teams. And they did that today. So I think that's where the disappointment's going to come in, though. It's not necessarily from dropping 2 points. It's more so just from that feeling of that game was there to be won if we had just been a little bit more turned on in some key moments. If we had just had a couple of moments go for us, if a couple of players had maybe been a bit more clinical, it's a game that we could have maybe put a goal in the first half, and then they would have had to try to step out to salvage a point, and I think that would have let us play our game a little bit more. But we didn't get that goal early on. It eventually got into the second half, and the longer the game went on like that, the more you just had that feeling of best we're going to do here is a draw because they're going to grind it out, maybe nick a late winner if they can break out against us, but they'll be perfectly happy to just sit in and take a 0-0 draw against another top team. So before we get into the team stuff, let's talk about Chris Kavanagh because it's another referee that anytime I hear his name and I know he's going to be the center ref, I just sort of cringe because I know it's going to be a bad game. And yeah, it's a pretty poor game overall. Definitely did not keep it consistent on both sides. There were several times, I mean, they were going in rough. They were up for it physically today, and that was very apparent. Obviously, we know a lot of the players they have are very physical. And it's fine if you want to let them play a physical game, but then there were several fouls that he was calling against us where light touch, guy goes over, or we win the ball, guy goes over, and it was just foul, foul, foul. So it was basically they were getting into us and knocking us around and being very physical, so we couldn't really get up to our tempo that we like to play in. That are putting us off, but then anytime we try to win the ball back, we get called for fouls that aren't even really fouls. So it felt like it was kind of that inconsistency that really worked against us. And then on top of that, 2 very ugly challenges that go completely unpunished. And that for me is embarrassing. The first one is Pickford. And it doesn't matter that he's a keeper. You cannot lunge into a challenge, straight legs, studs up. He's not even going for the ball. I mean, where Gusto kicked it and where his legs were at that time, his legs were past the ball. The ball was like, basically, he was about to grab it with his crotch. He went in leg fully extended toward Gusto. And if Gusto doesn't flick it and jump out of the way, it's a potential leg breaker. But he doesn't call it. There's no yellow. Obviously, he didn't actually get him, so it's not like they're going to look for a red card. But still, that is a dangerous challenge you can't be making. It doesn't matter if you're a keeper or a defender. You go into that challenge, that's a foul. And the fact that Gusto managed to flick it through his legs, honestly, should even further make that point, because he didn't actually win the ball. And then the other one was Tarkowski. It was shortly after he and Disasi had their little coming together in our box. You could tell he was a little fired up, and I think it was Caicedo he went in on, very similar to the Romero challenge that got him sent off last year against us. The difference is Romero caught Fernandez a lot higher than Tarkowski did, but it's the same type of challenge. He comes in, swings through the ball, and keeps his leg fully in as he goes studs in onto his ankle. If it were higher, I think it would have gotten looked at, but it's still a dangerous challenge. I mean, when you swing in and you leave your foot in and you leave your studs in, that's dangerous. It's why Caicedo, in my opinion, didn't get sent off against Tottenham, because there was no force. He swung as soon as his foot connected with, was it Basuma, I think, or Sarr? As soon as his foot connected, you could see he pulled it back. He pulled out of it. He didn't go all the way through. He didn't carry through with his studs, which is why it was not a dangerous challenge. This is, I'm swinging through, I'm getting the ball, I'm taking you out with, and if you connect with studs, that should be at least looked at. And it wasn't even given a foul, I'm pretty sure. I'm not saying we would have won if the referee was more consistent. I do think we probably would have won if they'd actually looked at the Pickford one, given a penalty, if they looked at Tarkowski and possibly a red. But it just did feel like today there were a lot of things that were working against us, and the referee felt like it was one of those many things that were not working in our favor. But now looking at our team, and honestly something that was kind of working against us as well, is how we were set up today. It very much is the same style that we're used to seeing from Maresca. It's funny, I actually called the lineup where I did watch a lot of other previews for this, and everybody was expecting Vega to start, and I actually called it in the Shamrock Rovers match that Disasi was taken off in the second half, which in my mind said, okay, so he's probably resting him for the weekend, so he'll probably start, not Vega. And that's what we saw. Now, was that a good decision? I think at first it makes sense, because Disasi does have a bit more Premier League experience. He's also a bit more physically capable in the Premier League. I think Vega, I've talked about it before, he does seem to be strong enough. I'm just not sure if he's quick enough in the Premier League right now. So if Gusto's going to play, in my mind, Disasi needs to play then, between him and Vega. Now, where I do think Maresca probably got it wrong today is in the subs. I think how he set up was fine. It's what I expected. I feel like it's a good lineup, except for the fact that we are lacking defensively because we have injuries back there and Cucurella's out. But everything else, I think it's perfectly fine. I mean, you look at the front four, basically what we're used to seeing, Caicedo and Fernandez in the midfield. All of that's fine. And then the choice he had to make was Disasi or Vega, and I do agree that I think Disasi probably a bit more physically ready for this game. But then he only makes 2 subs, and that's where I do have to question, why didn't he do a bit more? But I do feel like he was really waiting for them to make their subs. And sometimes that can work out, but I feel like it works out more if the game's sort of in balance and it's back and forth and both sides are making moves, hitting punches, all that stuff. But that's not what was going on. We were trying to land a punch. They were basically just blocking, dodging. They were not actually trying to land a punch. So them making a sub is not really going to change much other than just bring in some fresh legs to keep them basically compact, solid in the back. So I feel like for Maresca, it kind of felt like he was sort of just, okay, what are they going to do? They made their subs. Okay, we'll just bring on Madueke, who is a bit more direct than Neto is, and then bring on Nkunku because Jackson's just not effective today. And I don't think those really helped us. You know, I look at it and I go, well, Gusto's not really doing much right now. Maybe get Vega in on that left side because he is pretty solid on the ball compared to Gusto. If I'm looking at it, I mean, defensively, we were not really being called into question for the most part, except for those occasional breakaways. And yeah, Gusto's probably a bit more capable of getting back than Vega is. But Gusto's main contribution today was on the ball, and he's not as good on the ball. Vega is pretty solid. His passing is typically concise. He keeps possession pretty well. He keeps it moving. He's helped out on the left side before, and I feel like Sancho was really hurting over there because he was the only one that was basically being isolated with 2 defenders on him. So I did look at that and say, I think Vega probably could come on for Gusto. I also thought Felix coming on would be a nice help for Palmer in there to give a little bit more pace and energy, or even on for Palmer, because Palmer wasn't really at it today, if I'm being honest. So there were definitely some other subs that I feel like probably could have helped us a little bit more, but it almost felt like Maresca was hesitant to make those big decisions, and it felt like he didn't really want to push for that win. Again, I mean, we're not in the title charge, so winning is not a necessity, but it is disappointing whenever they're clearly playing for the draw. They just want to get a point out of this, and you sort of say, okay, we're fine with that too. It feels like a concession, and I don't want to give, especially Sean Dyche, I just don't like him as a manager. I don't want to give him a concession. I don't want to give him the point that he so desires. I want to take 3 points from him. And I know there's a risk that, well, maybe you drop all 3 points then, and you give them 3 points instead of just 1. That's kind of where we should be, though. We want to get to that point next season of we should be pushing these matches to get 3 points. So why not try it here? If it fails, we're still in our building season. We're not worried about losing here. So why not go for it? I feel like I had the same issue against United and against Arsenal. It felt like we were comfortable to, all right, we're just going to take the point here. We're not going to really push for it. We're just going to keep it nice and pragmatic, comfortable. And I feel like both of those games were there to be won. I'm sure some fans will look at it and say, don't want to risk losing all 3 points. If I had to guess, a majority of the fan base is probably looking at that going, a little disappointed we didn't really go for it today. But into individuals, first of all, Sanchez made a couple really good saves. Only one moment I can think of that was a little, and that was on the block that Tosin made late in the second half. And it was just one of those where I feel like he didn't need to touch the ball because it looked like it was being blown possibly out of bounds. And then he gets a hand on it and he flicks it right into the path of an Everton player who's free in the box. It just felt like one of those decision-making was a little off there. Outside of that, though, I mean, he made a really good one-on-one save and then made a couple other decent stops as well. So another good shot-stopping game from him. And to be honest, his passing today, he wasn't really pushed. They were not pushing our back line. They were not pressing us for the most part. It was a lot of, we were keeping possession basically in the midfield with our defenders because they were pushed so far back. So thankfully, he wasn't really called into question on his passing today. And his shot-stopping, it was typically what we've seen from him. Really good saves. From Disasi, it's kind of what I expect to see from him these days. He had some good moments. He had some bad moments. It was just sort of up and down performance from him. That's typically what I expect. And obviously, it's not really what we need back there. Tosin had probably his best performance, though. I mean, the block itself is worthy of man of the match, but outside of that, I thought he was very comfortable. It helps to have a very bullish defender back there because he is strong and he is big. So he's definitely one of those defenders that's willing to mix it up with a Calvert-Lewin or a Beto when he comes on later. He's very good at riding those challenges and still standing up under that pressure. So yeah, I thought overall today he looked very solid. And again, the block for me gives him man of the match for my opinion. Colwill I thought was okay. Didn't really do anything great or bad. A couple of moments he did look a little nervy in the air. I do feel like there is still a bit of petulance with him. I know he is young, so he's still got some room to grow. But there were some moments where it feels like he's more so focused on making a challenge on the player than he is on the ball. One in particular was in their box on a corner. And it does waste a good opportunity because ball's in the air. It's not been dealt with very effectively by Everton. And Tarkowski's under it. And I just don't understand that. Okay, so he's there. He's probably going to win the ball. I'm going to shove him. Why? I mean, it's a floated ball. If he heads it, it's not going to go very far, which means we could still get on it and make something happen. But then you go and make a numbskull decision of just shoving the crap out of him. And it's not even clever. It's not even like you just sort of stepped in and maybe gave him a little nudge, seeing him out of your peripheral. I mean, you literally looked right at him. I'm going to hit him. You're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot. So that's frustrating. And then there was another one. This one was defensively, so it's a lot more scary because the ball is cleared long. I think it was in the first half. I think it was him and Calvert-Lewin were tussling for it. Instead of battling for position and then getting up under it so you could head it away, it was like he just kept pushing him forward until the ball fell behind him. I'm just like, where are you going? Were you so focused on pushing him out of the way you didn't think to get up under the ball and head it away? It was just such a weird moment that it felt like he was more focused on, I'm going to block this guy out and let the ball drop, which is an idiot thing to do as a defender, instead of just, I'm going to get my position, I'm going to hold my ground, I'm going to head it back that way. Ultimately, it was dealt with, but those are just two moments that, for me, that shows the youth and the inexperience that still exists in this team. and for Colwill too, because he is a defender that, in my opinion, has come a long way this season. He's done a really good job back there, but he's got to cut these moments out. He's got to cut the moments of petulance, of immaturity out of his game if we want to be a truly solid force next season with him back there. And I would like to see him succeed, because as much as I've talked about the frustration of selling a lot of our academy prospects off, it feels like Maresca does want to try to give some of these guys some time, which means Colwill has a very good chance under this manager of being a proven long-term center back for the club. But if he's going to keep doing this, it's not going to help his case, and it's going to make it feel like, well, we need to get somebody in here who's not going to be doing that silly stuff. Gusto on the left side, in my opinion, might be the worst performance today. And it might sound harsh, but the problem was we were keeping a lot of possession. We're knocking it around. We're trying to move the ball, we're just trying to keep the ball moving until Everton, that hole opens up. Maybe we find that one moment where they have a slight gap. We're just waiting for that moment to happen. And then the ball goes to Gusto, and our possession is done. It happens so many times, whether it was a bad pass, a bad touch, too long in possession, or he just goes backwards. And it feels like all that possession where we've been slowly moving it down the field, now all of a sudden we're just back in our defense because Gusto just went backwards with it. He was the one, whenever the ball went to him, I was just like, well, probably about to lose possession here. And I would say at least half the time, if not 70% of the time, when he got on the ball, that's when our possession ended. That's when all of the good work we did to get down the field, it ended. And it's harsh because I know that's not his game. I know he's not supposed to be the inverted fullback because that's not his best position. We've seen him at his best whenever he's more of a wing back, the overlapping run. That is typically where he's played well. So it's harsh to say that, well, he didn't have a good game because he's out of position, but ultimately he has played there a few times now, and it feels like he's not really learning in there. It feels like he's not getting better in there. So I do have to wonder, for Maresca, why do you keep trying him then? Yeah, I realize not having Cucurella hurts, and I realize that means you're going to have to go with somebody that is not as good as Cucurella in there, but I feel like Vega has shown he can at least play the position, physically maybe lacking a bit of pace, but I still think he fits that position better than Gusto does. So if you're seeing Gusto still not working in this match, why not go to Vega? Why not make that sub? And also, this is the second time I've seen Gusto have a header in the 6-yard box that he puts over. That to me is just really frustrating. Into the midfield, Enzo and Caicedo, both of them were fine. Caicedo maybe on the ball could have been a little bit better today. Thought his passes were a little off, but nothing too bad. He was typically the good breakup play. He didn't really get a chance to do much of that today, though, because Everton were not looking to build out from the back or to play through the midfield. A lot of it was just over the top. So he didn't get a chance to do it much, but when he did have to do it, he did it well. And then Fernandez, I thought a lot of his problem was just there's not enough movement up top mixed with the fact that Everton were blocking passing lanes really well today. So it just felt like his game was nullified. He didn't have the opportunity to do what he normally does. But it's not like he wasn't trying to. He was still working hard. And honestly, maybe he should have done a bit better when he wins the ball back from the slip by, I think it was Ghana in the second half, late in the second half that he gives to Sancho. Maybe should have done a bit more to try to fashion a chance out of that, but he's still there. He's still there to make that mistake happen and then get on the ball, and then the defense does their job to cut that chance off. But I feel like his work rate has just increased exponentially in the past month or so, and it's been great to see. And I know it will be disappointing for him that he didn't get an assist or on the score sheet today, because he has been in good form in that as well, but I still think he worked as hard as he could. And now we're getting into the front four, and this is where I feel like I'm going to be a lot more critical today. So Neto on the right side, I feel like he probably had one of his worst performances. Some of it was he was very isolated over there. And I will say, actually, for him and for Sancho, that is one thing I'll give them benefit of the doubt on, is they were very isolated. For Sancho, it was he didn't have Cucurella there making the runs that he normally does, and that obviously doesn't help. For Neto, it's more so his only option really was to go back to Disasi. And that didn't help him because they both had the fullbacks on them, and then the wings were getting back and doubling up on him as well. So neither of them really had a chance to create what they normally do. Sancho, I think, maybe should have done a little bit more because we've seen he has the guile to take on two defenders and maybe get past them. But both of them were very well marked, very well tracked today. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt on that sense, but there were a couple of moments where they did get a little bit of space, and I feel like the quality for both of them today just wasn't quite there. when we needed it to be. For Palmer, I feel like this was probably his worst performance in a while. And the thing is, he's not perfect. Obviously, he's going to have a game like this. But honestly, I do think it shows the quality of player he is, that he has this one bad game and look how much attention he's going to get for it. Because I've already seen one video from ESPN on YouTube, and the title was "No Palmer, No Party." And they didn't have the full sentence on there because it extended too long, and I didn't want to click on the video because I didn't want to give it the viewership, because I'm like, this is clearly either clickbait or it's just people being idiots. But it was like, does Chelsea have a problem when their star player doesn't? And I'm like, okay, so basically they're saying, are we a one-man team? And like, I think the Leicester match should prove that we're not, because he didn't really play great against Leicester and we still won. I think today was not about Palmer having a bad game. It was about our whole front four had a pretty poor game, and they were very well marked out of the game too. No, it's not because Palmer wasn't playing well today that we didn't win. Maybe don't be idiots that just, oh, Palmer didn't play well. Oh, Chelsea didn't win. Oh, connect the dots. Anyways, on to the final one, Jackson. And he was definitely marked out of the game today. He had two really good chances that a lot of people are saying he should have finished both of them. The first one, I think, is a lot tougher than people are giving him credit for, because the commentators were saying he should have finished it. And then I saw one video saying that he should have finished it. And I'm looking at it going, it was behind him, though. Like, first of all, it's whipped in with pace. Good ball by Palmer's. And it's slightly behind him. So he had behind him, it's coming in at pace, and the defender was sliding in to make a block too. The fact that he managed to turn it on to goal at all, I was impressed with that. Pickford makes a good save, but it does bounce right to another player, Gusto, who should be finishing it. But I thought he took that one pretty well. Second one is a little bit more difficult to defend him on because it is a little bit easier. It's a header at the back post. He just has to put it on target, basically, and he puts it at the post. I know it's coming in quickly, and there's a little bit of a deflection off the corner, so it's not like it's the perfect, he just had plenty of time to just take a touch and have a shot. Like, it's still not easy, but it's not hard to put that away either, especially for some of the top strikers. So I think it does go to show he still has these little gaps in his game. But to be fair, I mean, we have seen some other really good strikers miss chances like this too. I mean, Haaland's missed several clear-cut chances that he probably should be burying. So it's not uncommon for strikers to miss. It's just unfortunate that today we don't get the win, and those were our two clear chances that fall to him. So of course everybody's going to be laying the blame on him for that. And I just think it's very unfair. Like, I get that, yeah, you need him to step up, but I don't think you can say Jackson is the sole reason we didn't win today. I mean, if you're looking at the front four as a whole, they were not really in the game that much. It felt like anytime they got on the ball, it was not dangerous for Everton. It was very simple for them to sort of stay in their shape and not really get too flustered with it. And I think that comes from probably a lack of movement, lack of creativity up there. I think one moment in particular that really stood out to me, and it was probably the moment when I realized that a draw was all we were going to get from this. It was in the second half. Palmer had actually had a good run. It was when he had his little spurt of 5 to 10 minutes where he was getting on the ball and looking a little creative. He got the foul right on the edge of the box. But he picks up the ball, coming across the near the top of the box, and he picks out this brilliant pass, cuts through the lines, great ball in behind to Sancho, who is standing, not reading the run at all. And that was the moment where I looked at it and went, we're going to get a draw today, because that's a run that typically Sancho sees. He sees what Palmer's going to do, and he's on it, and he's through, he's in behind. Today, he wasn't. Completely different pages. So I think that's a lot of what was going on, is just good defending from Everton that nullified a lot of our attack, and those attackers, some of it may be focused, some of it may just be, everybody has bad games occasionally. They just all four decided to have a bad game today. But I do think there was just a lack of connectivity up top, and we made it a little easy on them at times to defend, I thought. As far as the subs that came on, neither of them really did much to change the game. I will say, because I'm already somebody that I don't really like how selfish Madueke can be at times and how that hurts us in games, especially whenever we're wasting chances and we need to be creating more chances than we're wasting. I will say that moment when he picks up the ball and he cuts inside, and it looked like he might have been setting up for a cross. And to be fair, he might have been, because I know the wind was really affecting the game, so maybe it just carried it to Pickford. But to me, it looked like he cut inside and he didn't look to hit the cross. It looked like he wanted to have a shot from like 25 yards out. That was basically just a little pass back for Pickford to go collect. And this was late in the game. It was like 89th minute or something like that. I'm just looking at him going, if I were in England right now, if I had gone to the game with my family, I probably would have jumped all the way through the crowd, jumped onto the field, went out there and just tackled him because I was livid. I was already frustrated with how just the game was going at the time. And then you go and do that when we need to be keeping possession and trying to create something. And then you just pick up the ball and go, I'm just going to have a shot, and then hit that right at the keeper. That irked me. And then in Cuckoo, I feel like this wasn't a game for him. It's a game where he's up against two big, tall center backs. He's not going to be nearly as effective unless we can get the ball to his feet. And we're not getting the ball to his feet because they have 10 guys in and around the box. So it's very tight in there. Unless you play that perfect pinpoint pass, he's not going to get it. And we weren't playing those passes today. The passes, most of them were slightly off if we tried to pick that perfect pass through all of the defenders and stuff. It didn't feel like he was going to be able to do much, and he didn't really give us much of anything that I can remember. So all in all, again, it's a point. It's not anything that is too detrimental. If this were Arsenal dropping points like they did last weekend, this was detrimental to them because that's 2 points dropped in the title race. For us, it's disappointing not to get the win, but we're still comfortably top four. We're still, I think it's 2 points now ahead of Arsenal. We're doing fine. We're still sitting pretty. We still have decent run of games coming up. I think Fulham will be a bit of a test, but then after that, I think it's like Ipswich, somebody else. I don't remember who. But we do still have a pretty favorable run of games coming up that we should be taking points off of. Now, if this becomes a bit more of a habit and we start dropping points a bit more regularly, then we can be a little bit more frustrated with it. But as it is, this is just, it's one game and a blip. We still haven't been defeated since the Newcastle match in, I think, October. Still doing fine on that front. But I do think this is a good game for Maresca since he's shown he can learn. He's shown he's starting to figure out different ways to get results that we need. I think this is a good game to show there are a few teams like Everton. I mean, Forest is another good example. They know how to defend. They know how to nullify attacks, and they know how to try to hit you on counterattacks. And for Everton, honestly, they don't even do that very much. Occasionally they'll hit you on counters, but for the most part, they do just like to sit in and hold their shape, especially under Sean Dyche. I do think it's a good test for Maresca, and it's a good game to help him learn how to break that down. So hopefully he'll have some more ideas the next time we do face him. But as far as this is concerned, we'll look ahead to Thursday against Fulham, which, again, will be a bit of a tough test. Also, I did just happen to see that Liverpool won 6-3. So, yeah, that Tottenham back line, man. Woo. Yeah, we'll look ahead. We'll hopefully get 3 points back at the bridge. But that's it for me. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the game today? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on here as well as a couple Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. And I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.